Everyone keeps waiting for the housing market to crash, right? It's like the constant hum in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Every conversation about money, every news headline seems to touch on it. You know, those images of 2008, they're kind of seared into our collective memory.
Absolutely. Makes people expect another shoe to drop.
Exactly. A sudden dramatic implosion. But what if? What if the crash isn't going to look anything like that? What if it's like already happening, just quieter, slower?
Yeah, not in that explosive way people picture.
Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. This is where we take a stack of your sources, articles, research, maybe some of our own notes, and we really dig in.
Try to extract the most important bits of knowledge or insight.
Think of it as your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. We try to pack it with surprising facts, maybe a little humor to keep it moving.
Hopefully. You know.
And today, yeah, we're diving deep into the current state of the housing market. And honestly, the picture our sources paint, it's less that fiery 2008 implosion
Much less.
and more of a slow, fundamental, almost kind of insidious shift.
That's a really good way to put it. The core metaphor we landed on for this deep dive is, well, it's powerful, maybe a bit unsettling.
Okay.
It isn't a sudden shock, right? Less a house collapsing in flames.
Right.
And more like that classic image of a frog in boiling water.
Ah, okay. I see where you're going.
Yeah, the temperature's just rising gradually,
Yeah.
incrementally. Maybe you don't even notice if you're not paying super close attention.
Mm-hmm.
But the danger, this is real. It's a market that's become fundamentally just unaffordable. It's gridlocked, almost by design.
Gridlocked by design. Interesting.
And it's slowly rugging,
Yeah.
pulling the rug out from under that traditional path to building middle-class wealth through home ownership.
Wow.
So the grim truth isn't really that the market's going to crash. It's that it isn't crashing in the way people are braced for. And that's precisely why it's so problematic,
So, okay, today we're going to unpack why this current period is just vastly different from previous downturns, especially 2008, and what this slow burn crisis really means for you, whether you own a home, you're trying to buy, or you're just trying to make sense of the economic landscape.
Yeah, it's a significant shift, and it impacts way more than just real estate prices. It touches everything.
Okay, let's dig into that. As you just mentioned, so many people are still kind of bracing for a 2008 style crash. It's the default comparison, isn't it?
It really is. Anytime rates tick up or prices soften a bit.
But the sources we looked at are pretty clear that comparison just doesn't hold up. So to really get why, we should probably quickly recap that dizzying pandemic era bubble, roughly 2020 to 2022.
Yeah, run up.
So set the scene for us. How did house prices hit those absolutely unprecedented highs so fast?
Well, yeah, 2020 to 2022, prices were driven to just utterly dizzying record levels. It really was a perfect storm of factors all hitting at once.
Okay.
First, you had ultra-low interest rates. Central banks deliberately made borrowing incredibly cheap to stimulate economies during the pandemic.
Right, QE and all that.
Exactly. Then, governments worldwide unleashed massive stimulus packages, just putting cash directly into people's hands. At the same time, household savings went way up, partly because lockdowns meant fewer places to spend money, right?
Yeah, restaurants, travel, all shut down.
And then the nature of work changed fundamentally, didn't it?
Oh, massively. Remote work.
Precisely. The sudden shift to remote work for millions meant people were suddenly spending way more time at home, staring at their four walls.
Get sick of them, maybe.
Yeah. So there was this huge surge in demand for larger homes, more space, home offices, extra bedrooms, maybe just a backyard that felt like an escape. The whole suburban dream got a new lease on life.
Okay, so massive demand increase, but supply didn't keep up.
Not even close.
Yeah.
This huge demand surge hit a wall of constrained supply. We saw significant construction delays because of pandemic disruptions, everything from, like, lumber shortages to shipping bottlenecks.
Right, the supply chain chaos.
Yeah. Plus, there was already a persistent labor shortage in the building industry. New homes just couldn't get built fast enough.
Okay.
You combine all that with a big surge in investor and speculative buying, and yeah, it created what felt like a real estate sugar rush. Things got crazy.
A sugar rush, I like that.
Yeah.
Prices just skyrocketing, bidding wars everywhere.
Totally.
It felt like if you didn't buy right now, you'd be priced out forever. But then, the rude interruption, right? That party couldn't last.
Absolutely not. That real estate sugar rush was abruptly stopped dead in its tracks when central banks, especially the U.S. Fed, started aggressively hiking interest rates in 2022.
And the impact. Immediate.
Immediate and brutal for anyone needing a mortgage. For instance, the average 30-year fixed-rate mortgage in the U.S., it increased by a staggering 130% within just 1 year.
Wow, 130%.
Yeah, jumping from around 3% in late 2021 to a shocking 7% by late 2022.
Okay, translate that. What does 130% mean in terms of, like, my actual monthly payment if I was trying to buy?
It was transformative, and not in a good way. It meant your monthly payment for the exact same loan amount could be 50% to 80% more expensive,
Yeah.
depending on where you lived, the house price.
50 to 80% higher payment.
Yeah, think about that. Your buying power was basically cut in half or more, almost overnight. Affordability just collapsed.
So people just couldn't qualify anymore.
Millions couldn't qualify, or they just looked at the numbers and dropped out of the market entirely. Realized the dream was suddenly financially impossible. Mortgage demand in the U.S. cratered, hit a multi-decade low. That's a really clear sign of how fast things shifted.
And the Fed, were they worried about this?
Counterintuitively, for some, no. The Fed actually welcomed this downturn. They saw it as a necessary correction to cool down that overheated economy and fight inflation. They wanted this cooling.
Right, and this wasn't just a U.S. thing, was it? These rate hikes, they echoed globally. What about places like, say, Canada or the U.K.?
Oh yeah, the ripples went everywhere, often hitting harder because of local conditions. In Canada, for example, a pretty big chunk, like a third of homeowners, had variable rate mortgages.
Ah, tied directly to the central bank rate.
Exactly. So when the Bank of Canada mirrored the Fed's aggressive hikes, the impact on those homeowners was just crushing.
Ouch.
Many saw their monthly payments soar, hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars more per month. It pushed some to the brink of default, forced others to think about selling.
Creating that fear of a downward spiral.
Yeah, that deleveraging cycle fear. Rising payments force sales, push prices down more. In Toronto, which was already seen as massively overvalued, house prices fell around 17% in 2022 alone, a direct result of that affordability shock.
And the U.K., they had their own unique issues on top of the rate hikes, right?
They certainly did. The UK mortgage market works a bit differently. Mortgages often have shorter fixed-rate terms, maybe 2 to 5 years.
So people face refinancing risk more often.
Exactly. You're exposed to payment shocks when your fixed term ends and you have to refinance at whatever the current, much higher market rates are. And prices were already sliding before former Prime Minister Liz Truss's brief and disastrous tenure.
Yeah, that didn't help.
Her government's unfunded tax cut proposals basically blew up the bond market, sent long-term interest rates sky high. It caused lenders to pull something like 1,700 mortgage products from the market in a single week.
1,700 products gone.
Just vanish.
What?
Almost unprecedented. It just poured fuel on the fire of collapsing consumer confidence, all amidst this already brutal cost of living crisis gripping the UK. Imagine getting ready to buy or refi, and your mortgage offer just disappears.
Yeah, terrifying. So, okay, given all that turmoil, the rate hikes, the affordability collapse, the international shocks, it's easy to see why so many commentators, maybe even us sometimes,
Guilty.
felt pretty bearish, pretty pessimistic. Some were even warning about a 2008-style global housing crash, which, let's face it, makes for good clickbait.
Always does. Drama sells.
But our sources are very clear that comparison, while tempting, it fundamentally misses the mark. So what's the critical difference? Why isn't this 2008? If it's not a heart attack, what is it?
And that's the absolutely crucial question, isn't it? It's really the core insight here. If 2008 was a housing market heart attack, sudden, catastrophic, systemic failure,
Right.
the 2020s,
Yeah.
this has been more like a real estate sugar binge leading to chronic tooth decay.
Okay, chronic tooth decay. Explain that analogy.
It signifies a different kind of crisis,
Right.
right? Far more drawn out, something that chips away at the foundations rather than bringing the whole house down in one go. Less dramatic, maybe, but potentially more insidious and long-lasting.
Okay, so what are these fundamental differences? What makes today more like chronic decay than that sudden heart attack?
Well, firstly, the actual structure of the housing market. It's just far more robust this time around. That era of reckless lending that fueled the last bubble.
Right.
It's gone, thankfully.
You mean the ninja loans?
Exactly. Those infamous ninja loans. No income, no job, no assets. That was a hallmark of the pre-2008 madness. Lenders handing out mortgages to basically anyone with a pulse.
Often with those exploding adjustable rates.
Yeah, that simply isn't happening now. There are strict requirements in place for mortgage applicants today. Lenders demand solid credit scores, documented income, rigorous debt-to-income ratios.
So fewer unqualified borrowers getting loans they can't afford.
Way fewer. which means we're far less likely to see those mass defaults from people who probably shouldn't have gotten a loan in the first place. That's a fundamental foundational difference.
Okay, so loan quality is much higher. What
Yeah.
else makes it more robust?
Secondly, and this is maybe even more important,
Hmm.
homeowners today are sitting on mountains of equity.
Right, house prices went up so much.
Exactly. In 2008, people were often borrowing up to 100%, sometimes even more, of their home's value, using their homes like ATMs.
Hmm.
So when prices inevitably fell, millions were instantly underwater. Negative equity. They owed more than the house was worth.
Which gave them that grim incentive to just walk away, mail the keys back.
Precisely. Nothing to lose, really, except bad credit. Ditch the bad debt. But today, the situation is the polar opposite.
How so?
Over half of all mortgaged homes in the U.S. now have more than 50% equity.
50%, that's huge.
It's massive. They literally own a majority stake in their home's value. So even if prices were to fall further, and we're not seeing big national drops, owning such a large stake makes homeowners incredibly unlikely to default, even if they face financial strain.
They've got too much skin in the game.
Way too much to lose, literally and figuratively. Their house isn't just a bill, it's a major asset, a piggy bank they've filled for years.
Okay. And the third difference, you mentioned supply earlier. That was a big factor in '08, right? Too many houses.
Huge factor. And it's a complete reversal now. The 2008 crisis was made much worse by a glut of homes, a massive overbuilding spree during the preceding boom.
Right. Empty subdivisions everywhere.
Yeah, the market was just flooded with more homes than buyers could possibly absorb.
Mhm.
Now, the U.S. and many other developed countries suffer from a persistent structural shortage of housing.
The opposite problem.
Completely.
Ooh.
For years, demand has consistently outstripped supply. Think population growth, changing demographics, plus a decade of underbuilding after the 2008 crash scared builders off. This fundamental imbalance. It acts like a powerful floor under national home prices. It prevents those widespread sharp declines we saw last time.
So, okay, 2008 was too much supply, bad loans. Today is too little supply, affordability crisis.
Exactly. A very different kind of pain.
So if we're not heading for a sudden crash, if the market's not collapsing like that,
Yeah.
then what is happening? What's the fuss? What does this slow burn crisis, this low-octane crisis actually look like?
Yeah, low octane's a good way to think about it. Not a huge explosion, but still a crisis, especially for people trying to get in. What we're seeing is this profound housing market paralysis, a gridlock.
Gridlock.
Yeah, supply and demand are basically frozen, creating something we could call the Great Stagnation. It's not a quick correction. It feels more like a long-term, grinding affordability crisis where the market is stuck at a painfully high price point.
The Great Stagnation. That sounds depressing, frankly. Where are the most obvious symptoms of this? The most painful ones?
The most obvious, most painful symptom, the one that hits almost everyone trying to buy. It's the unbearable affordability crisis.
Right.
Saying it's challenging to buy a home today is a massive understatement. In many wealthy countries, the U.S. included, buying a home is mathematically impossible for a huge chunk of the population.
Mathematically impossible.
Look at the numbers. This spring, the median U.S. home sale price hit $414,000. That was an all-time high for April, the 22nd straight month of year-on-year increases.
So prices are still climbing nationally, even if slowly.
So climbing slowly on a national level, yeah. And remember those stubborn mortgage rates we talked about, still hovering near 7%.
That double punch. High prices, high rates.
It's brutal. You put those two together, soaring median price, stubbornly high rates, and the picture for the average buyer is ugly. Our sources suggest nearly 75% of all U.S. households.
3/4.
Yeah, but 100 million households cannot afford to buy a median-priced home right now. Just let that sink in. 3/4 of the country priced out.
That's staggering. And the market's super sensitive to small changes too, right? It sounds fragile despite looking stable on the surface.
Incredibly sensitive. It's fascinating and kind of heartbreaking. A mere $1,000 increase in a home's price. That's enough to push another 115,000 households out of the market.
Wow.
And a tiny quarter-point rise in mortgage rates, that excludes another 1.1 million households.
Jeez.
It's not just big jumps. It's this cumulative effect chipping away at access. And the mortgage burden itself, it's swollen to intolerable levels. Since 2022, a family earning the national median income needs about 36% of their earnings just for the mortgage payment on a new home.
36%. Before taxes, food, gas.
Exactly. And for lower-income families, that number gets even more absurd.
Oh, absurd.
It rises to 72% of their income.
72%.
Yeah, more than double the official cost burden threshold, which is usually 30%. Imagine trying to live, raise kids, save anything, buy groceries, when nearly three-quarters of your income is just gone to housing. It leaves no room for anything else. It's a quality of life issue, not just finance.
So this has created what you called the mortgage gap, splitting homeowners into two camps.
Yeah, essentially two different economic realities. This division is key to understanding why prices stay high even when somebody can't afford them.
Okay, tell us about the haves versus the have-nots.
Okay, on one side, the haves. These are the homeowners lucky enough to have locked in mortgages before 2021, during that era of near zero rates.
The sub-3 percenters.
Exactly. They're basically insulated from inflation. Their payments are stable, fixed for decades, incredibly low by today's standards. Their equity has ballooned. And in real terms, their housing costs are actually shrinking over time because inflation eats away at their fixed debt.
They're sitting pretty. Totally sitting pretty, often paying way less than renters in comparable properties.
And then the have-nots. That's most people trying to get in now.
That's everyone else, yeah. New buyers, renters desperate to own, young families needing more space, even existing homeowners who have to move for a job or family reasons. They face the full, brutal force of today's prices and today's rates. The financial strain is immense.
And that gap explains the paradox. High prices despite low affordability.
It really does. The market isn't one single entity. It's this two-tiered system, and the friction is huge. It's also deepening that divide in wealth building, which has massive long-term consequences for social mobility, economic stability.
Yeah, absolutely. Which leads perfectly into the second big problem of this great stagnation.
Yeah.
That supply paradox. Common sense says if fewer people can buy, demand weakens, prices should fall, right? Supply should catch up.
Right, basic economics. But nationally, that's not really happening in the US, UK, Australia. Why not? Why isn't more supply hitting the market to cool things down?
It comes down to something called the locking effect, or sometimes golden handcuffs.
Okay.
In the U.S., sources show over 80% of current homeowners have a mortgage rate under 6%. Many are way under that, like 3% or 4%.
Much lower than today's 7-ish%.
Way lower, often half. So this huge majority of homeowners, they're effectively locked into their homes by their own good fortune, by that great rate.
So nobody wants to give up their golden handcuff, that cheap rate, with a massive disincentive to move.
Massive is the right word. Imagine you have a $2,000 monthly payment on a sweet 3% rate. If you sell and buy a similar house today, your payment could easily jump to $4,000, $5,000 for the same loan amount.
Oof. Yeah, no thanks.
Exactly. Who wants to double their housing costs voluntarily? You'd only do it if life absolutely forces you, a big job relocation, major family change, health crisis. While those things happen, this huge financial disincentive keeps millions of existing homes off of the more affordable ones off the market. It just strangles that resale supply.
Okay, so existing owners aren't selling. Then why not just build more? If demand is so high, especially for affordable homes, shouldn't builders be rushing in? But construction seems to be slowing down.
It is slowing dramatically, and that's the other side of the supply paradox, cementing the stagnation. In the U.S., new construction, it's way down.
Yeah.
Building permits a sign of future building hit a nearly 5-year low recently, around 1.39 million units.
Okay.
And housing starts, actual shovels in the ground fell even sharper, a 5-year low of 1.25 million units.
And how much do we actually need?
Estimates suggest the U.S. needs at least 2 million new homes annually just to start closing the shortage gap and keep up with population growth. We are building far, far below what's needed.
So why aren't builders building? What's holding them back? It seems like a golden opportunity.
Well, builder confidence has actually plummeted. It's near its lowest point in over a decade.
Really? Why?
They're facing a ton of headwinds. Material costs are higher, eating into profits. New tariffs are projected to add another 5 to 7% to overall construction cost.
Okay, costs are up. What else?
And that persistent, really critical labor shortage in construction. It's a massive bottleneck.
Right, finding skilled workers is tough.
It's incredibly tough. There's data suggesting a very large number of U.S. construction workers are undocumented. Without taking sides on policy, it's clear that anything impacting their availability severely worsens an already dire labor crunch. One study found the lack of skilled workers cost the sector $10 billion and stopped about 19,000 single-family homes from being built just last year alone.
Wow. Okay, so recap the supply side.
What?
Existing owners are locked in, not selling. New construction is way too slow due to costs and labor shortages.
Exactly. So the market, instead of rebalancing through falling prices, just stagnates at this very high, unaffordable level.
Which brings us to demand, which is also weirdly fractured, right? You'd think demand would be weak overall, but it sounds like it's actually ferocious competition, just in specific areas. Who's actually buying right now?
It's a fascinating, almost gladiatorial dynamic. The biggest players right now, maybe surprising to some, baby boomers,
Mm.
aged 60 to 78-ish.
Really?
Yeah, they're the largest share of both buyers and sellers. Many have huge equity from owning homes for decades, watching values soar.
Right.
This lets many of them make all-cash purchases.
Ah, cash is king. Especially now.
Totally. It makes them completely insensitive to high mortgage rates. They don't need a mortgage. They just write a check, gives them a massive advantage.
Okay, so cash-rich boomers are a big force. What about the other end, Gen Z, the young, aspiring buyers?
They are, sadly, really struggling. Gen Z makes up a tiny slice, like 3% of buyers, even though studies show they really want to own homes.
Just can't afford it.
Systematically priced out. The median age for a first-time buyer is now 38. 38? That's way older than previous generations.
Wow.
And their overall share of the market. Historic lows, 24%. Many are completely reliant on family help, the bank of mom and dad, just for a down payment. Without that, they're just outgunned.
Okay, boomers with cash, Gen Z struggling. What about investors? I know people think of big companies like BlackRock buying everything. Is that still the main story?
That's the common perception. And those big institutions did make headlines for a while. But the data actually shows large institutional investors have mostly scaled back their single-family home buying.
Oh, interesting. So who is investing?
As the big guys pulled back, a different group became dominant. Small investors. Individuals or smaller companies buying fewer than 10 homes.
Okay.
They now account for a record high, almost 60% of all investor purchases. They are the main investor force now.
And what are these small investors targeting? Luxury homes?
Nope. Primarily entry-level properties in high-yield rental markets. Think Midwest, the South, places where home prices are lower, but rents are strong relative to the price. Basically, the last bits of affordable housing left.
Uh-oh. So they're competing directly with...
Directly with those struggling first-time homebuyers. They're in a direct bidding war for the exact same limited pool of entry-level homes.
So it's a three-way battle. Cash boomers, yield-chasing small investors, and completely outgunned first-time buyers.
That's exactly it. A three-way battle for a very limited pool of affordable homes.
Which sounds like a recipe for permanent price pressure at the entry level, doesn't it? Not just temporary.
It absolutely is. That dynamic keeps relentless upward pressure on the most crucial part of the market for new homeowners. Even if rates eventually dip, that competition likely stays fierce. It's a fundamental shift in who's buying.
Okay, so the market's stagnant, unaffordable, gridlocked. Not a crash, but this slow-motion crisis, the frog in boiling water. But even in a slow burn, cracks can appear, right? Are we seeing signs of distress, maybe in specific areas?
We are starting to see some, yes. And while they're not signaling a 2008 level collapse, they definitely need watching. Firstly, the U.S. is seeing a slow but undeniable upward creep in mortgage delinquency.
People missing payments.
Yeah, missed 1 or 2 months. And also an increase in foreclosures, the more serious step, where the lender actually repossesses the property.
But nowhere near 2008 levels.
Oh, nowhere near. The current delinquency rate is around 4%, which is still historically low, likely thanks to those tighter lending standards we talked about.
Okay, but the trend is up.
The trend is clearly upward. Recent data showed foreclosure filings up 9% year over year. Completed foreclosures, actual repossessions, shot up 34% in the last year.
34%. That sounds significant. Is it everywhere?
Not uniformly, no. The pain is concentrated in hotspots. States like Florida, South Carolina, Georgia are seeing the biggest jumps in delinquencies.
Florida seems key. It was such a poster child for the pandemic boom. Prices went nuts there. What's happening now?
Florida is absolutely a key indicator. It was one of the most overhyped markets during the bubble, attracting tons of remote workers, investors. Now it's cooling fast.
So sellers are starting to cave.
In some areas, yes. That market paralysis is breaking, with sellers finally capitulating and lowering prices. One analysis highlighted 6 major Florida markets: Orlando, Tampa, Cape Coral, Lakeland, Northport, Deltona seeing the sharpest downturns.
How much did they go up and how much are they down?
On average, those 6 markets shot up a crazy 53% since 2020, way above the national average. But over the past year, they're down about 4.5% on average.
4.5% down. How does that compare nationally?
That's more than 10 times the national average decline, which is only about 0.4%. So yeah, Florida's cooling much faster.
So the pessimistic view is Florida's the canary in the coal mine, a preview for other bubbly areas.
That's certainly one interpretation, yeah. A possible sign of an impending real estate bear market in other overvalued spots.
Okay. And that's not all the worry, is it? There's another signal, maybe more ominous, coming from commercial real estate. CRE.
Yes, that's right. The skyscraper next door, metaphorically speaking. The CRE sector is, by many accounts, in deep trouble, and those problems could definitely spill over.
Okay, tell us about the CRE troubles. How does that connect to regular housing or to our listeners?
Well, if you look at commercial mortgage-backed securities, CMBS debt, that's mortgages on office buildings, malls, hotels bundled up,
Hmm.
delinquencies are rising. Over 6.4% are 30-plus days late or in foreclosure. Office loans are even worse, nearly 8% delinquent. That reflects the whole work-from-home shift, right?
Yeah, empty offices everywhere.
And the really concerning number, loans transferred to special servicing, that's a sign of severe distress. Basically, default is imminent or has happened.
Good.
That rate has hit a 25-year high, over 16%. 16% of that debt is in serious trouble.
16%. Wow. And there's a lot of this debt coming due soon? The wall of debt?
A massive wall. Nearly $1 trillion, $957 billion of CRE debt is scheduled to mature just this year.
$1 trillion needs refinancing at today's high rates.
Exactly. Refinancing those loans now, especially for half-empty office buildings, it's going to be incredibly painful. If borrowers start defaulting widely, it's bad news.
How does that hit the average person?
Because the institutions holding a lot of this debt, they're disproportionately regional banks.
Ah, like the ones that had trouble last year.
Precisely. Regional banks hold about $3 trillion in CRE loans. That's nearly 13% of their total assets. If they start taking heavy losses on these loans,
They'll pull back on lending.
they'll tighten lending standards for everyone. Small businesses, individuals trying to get a mortgage. It could trigger a broader credit crunch, starve the residential market of financing, making it even harder to buy, even if rates dip slightly. It's a systemic risk, less about mass homeowner defaults, more about credit just drying up.
And all this is playing out against this backdrop of major economic uncertainty, isn't it? The whole economy feels like it's on a tightrope.
Absolutely is. Very tricky spot. GDP growth has slowed, but inflation is still stubbornly high. And ironically, driven partly by the high cost of housing itself.
Right, housing costs are a big part of inflation measures.
Huge component. Rent, owner's equivalent rent. So this puts the Fed in a really tough position, a policy box, some call it.
Can't cut rates because of inflation, can't raise them much more because of the slowdown.
Exactly. They can't confidently cut rates to boost the economy for fear of reigniting inflation, especially with new tariffs potentially adding price pressures.
So they're stuck. Rock in a hard place.
Pretty much. And this creates what you could call a policy-induced stagnation loop. High rates suppress housing and slow the economy, which makes the Fed hesitant to change course, which keeps rates high. It's a feedback loop, trapping the market in this high-cost stagnation.
And this isn't just the U.S., right? We're seeing variations of this globally, especially in the Anglosphere countries, often linked to U.S. trends. Canada, for instance.
Canada has a very similar affordability crisis, but with this looming mortgage cliff, it's a real ticking time bomb. Over $300 billion worth of mortgages are up for renewal this year.
And many were signed at super low rates.
Yeah, historic lows, often 1–2%. The shock of refinancing at today's rates, maybe 5–6% or higher. It's the last thing Canadians need. They're already among the most indebted households globally, holding $1.74 in debt for every dollar of disposable income.
Wow. So payments could double for some people.
Easily. Hundreds, even thousands more dollars a month just to keep their home. It's a seismic shock to household budgets, forcing really tough choices.
And the U.K., still battling that cost of living crisis. How's the housing pain showing up there?
Yeah, the UK has been grinding through this cost of living crisis for years. Food, energy, everything's expensive. While headline house prices have been surprisingly stable,
The pain's elsewhere.
it's showing up elsewhere. Mortgage repossessions by bailiffs, up a staggering 42% year over year. That's a grim statistic.
Yeah.
And what's also worrying is that about 2.7 million households are still on those ultra-low, sub-3% mortgage deals, usually from 2- or 5-year fixes taken out years ago.
So a wave of pain is still coming for them.
A huge wave is going to hit as they're forced to remortgage at current high rates. It's going to add immense pressure to already strained budgets, families facing cutting essentials, maybe even selling.
And finally, Australia. How's their market? And have specific policies made their situation unique?
Australia's market is really interesting because it's been so fundamentally distorted by decades of policy choices that consistently favored investors over homeowners.
How so? What policies?
Two big ones. Negative gearing and capital gains discounts. Negative gearing lets investors deduct rental losses from their other taxable income. So if your investment property costs more than the rent brings in, you write off that loss against your salary.
Wow, so it encourages buying even loss-making
It
properties.
makes it incredibly attractive, yeah, even without immediate cash flow. And the capital gains discount mean if you hold an investment property over a year, you only pay tax on half the profit when you sell.
Big tax breaks for investors.
Huge breaks,
Yeah.
costing the government billions. This whole framework actively incentivized real estate investment over actual home ownership. It funneled tons of money into existing properties, driving up prices like crazy without actually creating new supply.
So it's a prime example of policy driving a national housing crisis.
Absolutely, making it harder and harder for regular Australians to buy a home. A systemically driven crisis.
So, okay, where does all this leave us? We've seen this market go from boom to this profound stagnation. What does the future look like for housing and for you, our listener, trying to figure this all out?
Well, the central expectation, looking at all the data, seems to be that mortgage rates are going to stay higher for longer.
No quick return to 3%.
Those days are almost certainly gone. That was an anomaly, really, driven by specific post-crisis policies. The main takeaway isn't a sudden bonfire, not that dramatic collapse.
Right.
Instead, the new normal looks like a world where rates stay elevated, maybe bouncing around a bit, but high compared to the last decade. And this affordability crisis, it slowly rugs most of us.
Rugs us.
Yeah, it's a gradual systemic withdrawal of accessible home ownership from the average person.
Which brings us right back to that frog in boiling water metaphor, doesn't it?
Exactly. The temperature just keeps slowly, relentlessly rising. And the consequences are really profound. Think about it. Historically, homeownership was the main road to building middle-class wealth.
Yeah, the foundation of financial security, access to credit.
All of that. What happens when that path is systematically blocked for younger generations?
That's the huge question, isn't it? The long-term impact.
It's arguably the most significant implication. Younger people are getting systematically locked out of the very mechanism that lifted previous generations into financial stability, let them build assets, provided a safety net. This has really serious implications for that already vast and growing gap in generational wealth. It just further entrenches economic disparities.
Means fewer young people building equity, fewer leveraging homes for businesses.
A potentially much harder road to retirement security. It changes the whole life trajectory for many.
So as we wrap this up, I'm kind of left with this thought, maybe a bit provocative. For younger generations, is housing becoming just another subscription?
Interesting take.
You know, relentlessly draining your bank account, just like Netflix and Spotify, only way, way bigger, a massive monthly bill, but without the equity, without the asset growth, without the security that homeownership used to mean.
That is a provocative thought, but honestly one worth really considering. While you'll definitely have plenty to watch and listen to with your subscriptions, this systemic shift in home ownership, it has profound long-term consequences that go way beyond just your monthly budget. It really redefines what financial security and wealth accumulation even mean for an entire demographic. It's shifting the very structure of economic opportunity.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the complexities of the housing market. We really hope you'll take some time to mull over the insights shared today.
Yeah, lots to think about.
If you enjoyed this deep dive, please do follow, like, and share the deep dive with others who might find it interesting.
Helps us out a lot.
And for more insightful content, make sure to follow What Bitcoin Taught Me on all the platforms: Twitter X, Nostr, Bluesky, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
We're everywhere.
Until next time.